Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The shuttle descended through the swirling mists of Thalaxian Prime, its hull vibrating softly against the atmospheric pressure. John Avery peered out the porthole, his eyes tracing the vast expanses of emerald jungles and silver rivers below. First time on Thalaxian? The voice belonged to Dr. Elliot Vance, another human, who was already busy unpacking his gear. Yeah, John replied, turning his attention to his companion. Heard a lot about their medical tech. How about you? Elliot chuckled, fastening his safety harness. Third time. Actually, I'm here to study their neuro-rehab methods. Incredible stuff. The shuttle lurched slightly as it made its final approach, prompting a few nervous glances from the other passengers, mostly Thalaxians, their delicate features calm and composed. As the craft touched down, a voice came over the intercom, smooth and melodic with the Thalaxian accent. Welcome to Thalaxian Prime. Please remain seated until we have reached the terminal. John and Elliot retrieved their bags and joined the queue to disembark. As they stepped onto the terminal, they were greeted by a delegation of Thalaxian officials, their robes shimmering with intricate patterns. Dr. Vance, Mr. Avery, one of the officials, a tall figure with luminescent eyes, extended his hand. I am Dr. Raylar. We're honored to host you. The honor is ours, Dr. Raylar, Elliot replied, exchanging a firm handshake. John nodded his agreement, his gaze drifting over the bustling terminal. We're eager to get started. If you'll follow me, we've arranged for your immediate transfer to the medical complex, Dr. Raylar said, leading them through the terminal. As they walked, John noticed the diversity of the crowd. Thalaxians of various hues and sizes mingled with a smattering of other alien species. The air was filled with a symphony of languages, the walls adorned with holographic displays showcasing Thalaxian achievements in science and art. So, John, what brings a tough guy like you to our peaceful world? Elliot asked, nudging him playfully. John smiled. I specialize in extreme environment biomedicine. I'm here to see how your techniques can help humans survive in harsher worlds. Ah, you'll find our regenerative therapies quite revolutionary then, Dr. Raylar interjected, his voice tinged with pride. Their conversation was suddenly cut short by a loud crash outside the terminal. Without a moment's hesitation, John and Elliot rushed towards the source of the noise, followed closely by Dr. Raylar. Outside, they found a cargo transport had tipped over, its driver pinned under a heavy crate. John and Elliot immediately sprang into action, coordinating with a few Thalaxian bystanders to lift the crate. Ready? On 3, 1, 2, 3. John counted, his muscles straining against the weight. With their combined effort, they managed to lift the crate enough for another bystander to drag the injured driver to safety. As medics arrived and took over, Dr. Raylar looked at John and Elliot with a mixture of astonishment and gratitude. Incredible. Your strength and quick response. We're not accustomed to such physicality. Elliot wiped the sweat from his brow, sharing a look with John. Guess there's a first time for everything, right? John laughed, checking his hands for blisters. Seems like we've already started our cultural exchange. Dr. Raylar smiled, a genuine expression of respect forming. Indeed, Mr. Avery, your actions today were remarkable. I look forward to learning more about your capabilities. Thanks, Dr. Raylar, John replied, his chest swelling with a mix of pride and adrenaline. I'm just glad we could help. As they returned to the terminal, the incident had already sparked a buzz among the Thalaxians, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and respect. So, John, ready to show them what else we can do? Elliot asked, his tone light but proud. John nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. Absolutely. Let's see what we can learn from each other. With that, the two men followed Dr. Raylar into the heart of Thalaxian Prime, their journey just beginning. The Thalaxian Medical Complex was a marvel of modern architecture, with sweeping curves and translucent panels that bathed its expansive halls in a soft, natural light. John and Elliot followed Dr. Raylar through these corridors, each turn revealing more of the alien technology that made this facility famous throughout the galaxy. Upon entering the research wing, they were introduced to another member of the team, Dr. Talon, a human geneticist whose work on adaptive genes was renowned. Dr. Vance, Mr. Avery, this is Dr. Talon. He'll be working closely with you during your stay, Dr. Raylar explained as they exchanged handshakes. Pleasure to meet you both, Dr. Talon said, his eyes bright with curiosity. I've heard about your impromptu rescue yesterday. Quite impressive. Thanks, John replied. We're just glad we could help. Elliot nodded in agreement. We're here to learn and contribute. What's first on the agenda? Dr. Talon gestured to a series of labs behind glass walls. First, we'd like to conduct some initial scans and tests on John. We're particularly interested in your healing processes. John raised an eyebrow. You want to poke around in my DNA because I lifted a crate? Not just that, Dr. Talon chuckled. Your ability to endure and recover might provide insights into enhancing our own medical treatments. Sounds exciting, John replied, intrigued by the prospect. As they settled into the testing area, Dr. Talon explained the equipment and procedures. We'll start with a full-body scan, then move on to some cellular sampling. Don't worry, it's all non-invasive. John lay down on a scanning bed, the machine humming softly as it moved around him. Elliot and Dr. Talon observed from a nearby monitor, discussing potential applications of the data. Imagine integrating human healing traits with Thalaxian technology, Elliot mused, watching the images flicker on the screen. It could revolutionize recovery times, Dr. Talon agreed, his tone filled with professional admiration. Once the scans were complete, John joined the others at the monitor. So, what's the verdict, Doc? Dr. Talon pointed to several images highlighted on the screen. Your cellular regeneration is off the charts. It's clear you have some unique adaptive qualities. The discussion was interrupted by Dr. Raylar's return. Gentlemen, if you're finished here, there's someone I'd like you to meet. They followed Dr. Raylar to a private conference room where another human, Dr. Marcus Fenway, was waiting. A specialist in xenomedicines, his research focused on developing drugs that could be used by multiple species. Dr. Fenway has been working on a multi-species painkiller that might benefit from your findings, Dr. Raylar explained as they shook hands. John, Elliot, good to meet you both, Dr. Fenway said. I believe your unique biology could help us fine-tune the efficacy of this drug across different species. Elliot looked at John, excitement evident in his eyes. This is exactly the kind of collaboration we were hoping for. Happy to be of service, John grinned. What do you need from us? Dr. Fenway laid out his current research on a digital display. Based on your scans, John, we could adjust the compound to better mimic your natural analgesic pathways. Elliot, your knowledge of neurorehab could help us ensure the drug is effective yet non-addictive. The group spent the rest of the day discussing potential modifications and testing protocols, their collaboration drawing a small crowd of interested Thalaxian researchers. As the day wound down, John and Elliot stepped out into the twilight of Thalaxian Prime, both exhilarated by the possibilities. Think we're onto something big here? John asked, watching the sunset color the alien sky. Elliot nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Yeah, something big and something good. This is the start of something that could help countless beings. With their path set, they returned to their quarters, eager for the days ahead, filled with the promise of groundbreaking medical advancements. After a successful first day of testing and discussions, John and Elliot joined Dr. Talon and Dr. Fenway for a welcome dinner hosted by the Thalaxian Medical Council. The event, held at a renowned local dining hall, offered an array of exotic dishes, blending flavors from different worlds, a testament to Thalaxian cultural appreciation. As they seated themselves at a round table decorated with luminescent flowers, John leaned in to converse with Dr. Fenway. Marcus, about the painkiller project. How did you come up with the idea for a multi-species formulation? Dr. Fenway took a sip of his drink, a sparkling blue liquid, before answering. It started with a simple observation. Many species use similar biological pathways for pain but react differently to drugs. I thought, why not find a common denominator? That's fascinating, John replied, genuinely intrigued. And our project could really push that forward. Elliot chimed in, his eyes scanning the menu. Imagine the impact. A breakthrough here could change medical treatments across the galaxy. Their conversation was joined by Dr. Talon, who was eager to share his perspective. Your human biology is unique, John. It's robust yet adaptable, a rare combination. It's a pleasure to study such a system. As the meal progressed, the group shared not just ideas but personal stories as well, weaving a tapestry of narratives that highlighted their diverse backgrounds. Dr. Finway recounted his first encounter with alien species during a medical crisis on a remote outpost. His tale was filled with close calls and unexpected alliances. Meanwhile, Elliot discussed his passion for neurorehab, driven by his brother's recovery from a severe neurological injury back on Earth. It's what pushed me into this field. If we can bring even a fraction of that hope to other species, I'd consider it a lifetime achievement. John listened, moved by the stories of his colleagues. It's amazing, isn't it? How personal experiences drive our professional lives. The dinner concluded with a toast led by Dr. Raylar, who had been quietly observing the exchanges. To new friendships and fruitful collaborations, he declared, raising his glass. The group echoed the sentiment, their glasses clinking in the soft glow of the dining hall. Later, as they walked back to the medical complex under the starlit sky, John reflected aloud. Tonight was eye-opening. It's not just about the science, is it? It's about the connections we make. Elliot nodded, his gaze on the path ahead. Absolutely. It's the relationships that build the foundation of great science. John smirked slightly. Speaking of science, I'm thinking of proposing a joint field trip. We could use real-world data for the painkiller project. What do you think? I think that's an excellent idea, Elliot agreed. A practical test in a controlled environment could give us invaluable data. Excited by the plan, they pitched it to Dr. Talon and Dr. Finway the next morning. Both were enthusiastic about the proposal, recognizing the potential benefits of such data. Let's organize it for the end of the week, Dr. Talon suggested. We can use one of the outer clinics as our base. It's in a region where several species coexist, perfect for our needs. The preparations for the trip began immediately, with each member of the team contributing to the logistics and objectives. The anticipation of real-world application galvanized them, driving their efforts forward. As they worked late into the night, the bonds between the men strengthened, their mutual respect deepening with each discussion, each plan, each shared laugh. It was clear that this was the beginning of a collaboration that would extend beyond mere professional courtesy to something much richer and more meaningful. As the day of the field trip approached, the team gathered early in the morning, their gear packed for the journey to the outer clinic. The air was filled with a palpable sense of excitement and anticipation. John, Elliot, Dr. Talon, and Dr. Finway were joined by Dr. Yarin, a Thalaxian botanist whose expertise in alien flora was crucial for understanding environmental factors affecting their research. Morning, everyone, John greeted as he adjusted his backpack. Ready for a little adventure? Absolutely, Elliot replied, checking his digital clipboard for the day's schedule. This is going to give us some great insights. Dr. Yarin, a tall figure with a gentle demeanor, nodded in agreement. I've studied the region's plant life extensively. The bioactive compounds are quite unique and might offer some interesting synergies with your project. Dr. Finway turned to Dr. Yarin with interest. That's perfect. Understanding the local ecosystem will definitely enhance our approach. The journey to the clinic was a short shuttle ride, offering stunning views of Thalaxian Prime's diverse landscapes. Towering mountains gave way to lush valleys and sprawling forests. Upon arrival, the team was greeted by the clinic staff, who showed them around the facility. The clinic was modest but equipped with state-of-the-art medical technology, primarily designed to serve the local non-human populations. Dr. Talon set up their equipment in a designated research area. Let's start by collecting some baseline data. We'll need control samples from the local patients to compare with John's results. Elliot and Dr. Finway began organizing the medical test while John and Dr. Yarin walked through the surrounding area to gather environmental samples. This place is incredible, John remarked as they collected soil and plant specimens. Dr. Yarin smiled, plucking a leaf from a nearby tree. Thalaxian is home to over 7,000 species of plants, each with unique properties. It's a botanist's paradise. As the day progressed, local patients started arriving at the clinic, curious about the visitors and their equipment. John interacted with them, explaining their research and its potential benefits. One of the locals, an elderly figure with bright eyes, chuckled. "You humans are always so eager to learn. It's refreshing." John grinned, handing the individual a small device for monitoring vital signs. "We try our best. Learning is the only way we grow." Back inside the clinic, Elliot and Dr. Finway were making progress with their tests. "The data is looking good," Elliot noted, analyzing the readings. "There's a clear variance between John's samples and the locals. Exactly what we were hoping to find." Dr. Finway nodded, deeply engrossed in the data. This could really help tailor the painkiller to work more effectively across different species. As the sun began to set, the team gathered to review their findings. Dr. Talon summarized the results, pointing out several key observations on the large screen in the clinic's main room. "Today's results have exceeded our expectations," Dr. Talon announced. "The environmental factors coupled with John's unique biology provide a promising avenue for our research." Elliot looked around at his colleagues, a smile spreading across his face. "We've got something really special here, folks." John added, "It's not just the findings. It's working together, sharing knowledge and experiences. That's what's really making a difference." Dr. Yarin agreed. "Indeed, the human touch has added a new dimension to our work." As they packed up their equipment, ready to return to the main complex, there was a sense of achievement and camaraderie among them. The trip had not only provided valuable data, but had also deepened their understanding of each other and the collaborative potential of their diverse skills. "Let's keep this momentum going," Dr. Finway suggested as they boarded the shuttle back. "We're on the verge of something transformative." With the day's success fresh in their minds, they looked forward to the next steps, each feeling a part of something larger than themselves, a collective endeavor that promised to bridge worlds through science and friendship. After the successful field trip, the team returned to the medical complex energized and ready to delve deeper into their research. As they unpacked their equipment and uploaded the collected data into the complex's mainframe, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of accomplishment and excitement. John, Elliot, Dr. Talon, Dr. Finway, and Dr. Yarin gathered in the central lab to discuss the next phase of their project. The walls of the lab were lined with screens displaying complex biological data and environmental scans from their trip. "Today, we integrate the environmental data with our biological findings," Dr. Talon announced, tapping on his tablet to bring up a series of graphs. "Our goal is to see how the local flora influences the efficacy of the painkiller on different species." Dr. Finway nodded, reviewing the charts. "The variants in metabolic pathways we observed could be key to customizing the drug. John's samples will serve as our baseline for human compatibility." John, standing beside a microscope, looked up. "It's incredible to think that something as simple as local plants might change how medicine works galaxy-wide." Elliot, who had been setting up a simulation on another screen, chimed in. "It's the beauty of interdisciplinary work. Your expertise in extreme environments, John, combined with Yarin's botanical knowledge, might just revolutionize how we approach medical treatments." Dr. Yarin, sorting through a collection of digital plant samples, smiled. "Every plant tells a story. By understanding their language, we can perhaps make safer, more effective medicines." As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly, their discussions becoming more technical and focused. They analyzed genetic sequences, biochemical reactions, and pharmacological impacts, each discovery leading to new questions and hypotheses. During a short break, John brought up a holographic display of Earth, showing regions known for their medicinal plants. "Back home, we've used plants for healing for centuries. It's fascinating to see the same principles apply here, but with alien flora." Dr. Finway leaned in, intrigued. "Have you ever worked directly with pharmaceutical applications back on Earth, John?" "Not directly with pharma, but my fieldwork often overlaps. You learn to appreciate the natural world's role in our health," John explained, his eyes reflecting a deep respect for nature. The conversation shifted as Elliot brought up his recent simulations. "Based on our current models, if we adjust the active compounds according to the environmental data, we could increase the drug's adaptability by at least 20%. "That's impressive," Dr. Talon said, examining the model results. It shows we're on the right track. Integrating John's unique healing traits could push that even further. As the day wound down, the group discussed their personal motivations for joining this project. Dr. Finway shared a poignant story about a colleague who suffered from a rare, painful condition that resisted conventional treatments. That's why this work matters, Dr. Finway concluded, his voice tinged with emotion. Finding a cure, making a difference. It's personal for all of us. John nodded solemnly, his thoughts drifting to friends and family back home who could benefit from their breakthroughs. Every bit of progress here could mean a world of difference to someone out there. The team's camaraderie deepened through these shared stories and common goals. As they left the lab that evening, there was a mutual feeling of being part of something larger than themselves, a project that not only challenged them scientifically but also connected them on a human level. Let's keep pushing the boundaries, Elliot said as they locked up the lab. Who knows what we'll discover next? With the Thalaxian stars twinkling overhead, they parted ways, each contemplating the potential their collective effort held for the future. The blend of science, personal stories, and a unified goal had indeed created a unique bond among them, fueling their passion for the groundbreaking work still ahead. Under the silvery glow of Thalaxian's twin moons, the team's research entered a critical phase. The laboratory was abuzz with activity as John, Elliot, Dr. Talon, Dr. Finway, and Dr. Yarin finalized preparations for the first clinical trials of their newly formulated painkiller. The trials were to be held at a local medical facility, carefully chosen for its diverse patient demographics. All right, team, Dr. Talon began as they gathered around a large digital table displaying the trial protocols. Today we test our hypothesis in a real-world setting. Are there any last-minute concerns? Dr. Finway, double-checking the list of trial participants and their respective species, replied, "We've ensured that the participant group is as diverse as possible. The inclusion criteria are strict to ensure clean data. I think we're ready." Elliot, who had been fine-tuning the dosage algorithms, nodded in agreement. The dosing parameters are set. We're accounting for physiological differences across species, which should give us a clear picture of efficacy and safety. John, ever the pragmatist, chimed in, "Let's keep a close eye on any adverse reactions. Even minor symptoms need to be logged meticulously." Dr. Yarin added, "I'll oversee the botanical components. The active ingredients have been stabilized, but I'll monitor their interactions with local biologies closely." As the team made their way to the medical facility, the air was filled with a mix of anticipation and caution. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the facility's director, a respected figure in the Thalaxian medical community. "Welcome," the director said, extending a hand to each team member. "We are honored to participate in this groundbreaking trial. Our staff is prepared, and the participants are ready." The clinical trials began smoothly, with participants receiving their doses under strict supervision. John and Elliot manned the observation station, monitoring vital signs and biological markers, while Dr. Talon and Dr. Finway circulated among the medical staff, answering questions and overseeing the administration process. Dr. Yarin, meanwhile, was busy in the on-site lab, verifying the stability of the drug as it interacted with different biological systems. His meticulous attention to detail ensured that any variation was immediately noted and analyzed. "John, look at these initial response rates," Elliot pointed out, showing a graph with rapidly changing data points. "It's promising. The variability is lower than expected." John, scrutinizing the data, couldn't hide his enthusiasm. "This could really work, Elliot. It's not just a painkiller. It could be a model for future multi-species pharmaceuticals." As the day progressed, the team gathered data that exceeded their expectations. The painkiller not only proved effective across different species, but also showed minimal side effects, a testament to their careful formulation and understanding of xenobiology. As evening approached, the team sat down with the medical staff to discuss the preliminary findings. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. Dr. Finway, summarizing the day's work, said, "We're not just making strides in pain management. We're setting a precedent for how interspecies medicine can be approached." Dr. Talon, looking at the broader implications, added, "Imagine the applications, beyond pain management to healing, regeneration. The principles we're establishing here, they're transformative, John finished for him, his voice full of hope and determination. As the moons rose higher, casting their serene light over the facility, the team packed up their equipment. The day had been long and tiring, but the progress they'd made fueled their spirits. "Let's get some rest," Elliot suggested as they left the building. "Tomorrow, we analyze the full scope of the data. Then, we plan our next steps based on solid science, solid teamwork." Nodding in agreement, they made their way back to their quarters. The moon's twin glows a silent witness to the potential dawn of a new era in medical science. As they walked, their shadows stretched long on the Thalaxian soil, intertwined like the collaborative path they had chosen. As the data from the clinical trials poured in, John, Elliot, Dr. Talon, Dr. Finway, and Dr. Yarin convened in their primary lab at the medical complex to undertake a comprehensive analysis. The lab was silent except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep of equipment. Each team member was deeply focused, knowing the results could herald a significant breakthrough. Dr. Talon initiated the meeting with a review of the statistical analysis. "The data confirms our initial observations. The painkiller is effective and shows remarkably low adverse reactions across all tested species." Dr. Finway, looking over the charts and graphs displayed on the screen, nodded. "The efficacy rate is consistent, which is excellent, but I'm particularly impressed with the safety profile. It's better than anything currently on the market for both humans and Thalaxians." Elliot, who had been cross-referencing the environmental factors, added, "It seems the botanical compounds Dr. Yarin isolated are key contributors. Their properties are enhancing the drug's absorption and tolerance." Dr. Yarin, pleased with the acknowledgement, responded, "It was a gamble to use those specific compounds, but the synergy with the pharmacological agents is undeniable. We could be looking at a new class of biointegrated medicines." John, while encouraged by the technical success, shifted the discussion towards the practical implications. "So, what's our next move? We've got a working prototype. Do we start talking about production and distribution?" Dr. Talon, ever cautious, advised, "Before we think about mass production, we should consider a second, larger-scale trial. We need to be absolutely sure before we introduce it to a broader audience." Dr. Finway agreed. "Another trial would be wise. It would also give us a chance to refine the dosage based on long-term effects." Elliot, looking thoughtful, suggested, "What about patenting? If we're moving towards more trials, securing the intellectual property should be our priority. We don't want our research getting into the wrong hands or being misused." John nodded at Elliot's practicality. "Good point. Let's make sure we protect our work. Also, we should start drafting our findings for publication. Sharing our research could help accelerate development and acceptance in the scientific community." Dr. Yarin, always focused on the ethical dimensions, added, "We need to ensure that our developments are accessible to all. It's not just about creating a new drug. It's about making sure it benefits everyone who needs it." The conversation turned to the logistics of conducting a second trial and the necessary steps for patenting their findings. The team agreed to split the responsibilities. Dr. Talon and Dr. Finway would oversee the clinical aspects, Elliot would handle the legal protections with John assisting, and Dr. Yarin would continue refining the botanical components. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Talon reflected on their journey. "It's remarkable, isn't it? From theoretical research to potential real-world applications in just a few months." John smiled, feeling a surge of pride for their team. "It's more than remarkable, it's revolutionary. We're not just making medicine, we're making history." Elliot clapped John on the back. "Let's keep pushing then. We're on the verge of something big, and I can't wait to see where it leads us." As they left the lab, the weight of their responsibilities felt lighter shared among them. The path forward was clear, and each step they took was a move towards changing the landscape of medicine. They walked together, their bond strengthened by the challenges they faced and the shared vision that guided them. The days leading up to the second clinical trial were a blend of excitement and meticulous preparation. John, Elliot, Dr. Talon, Dr. Finway, and Dr. Yarin worked tirelessly, each focused on their assigned tasks but always ready to assist one another. The lab was a hive of activity, with discussions on dosage refinements and trial protocols at the forefront. One morning, as they reviewed the final trial preparations, Dr. Talon addressed the team with a serious tone. We've secured the funding necessary for the second trial, and the ethics committee has given us the green light. We're set to begin next week. Elliot, who had been coordinating the trial logistics, added, all participants have been briefed, and the trial sites are prepared. We've taken every precaution to ensure this goes as smoothly as possible. John, while checking the equipment inventory, nodded in agreement. It's all coming together. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we're ready to take this to the next stage. Dr. Finway, reviewing the legal documentation for the last time, chimed in. The patent applications are filed, and our research is protected. It's a relief to have that security as we move forward. Dr. Yarin, always thoughtful, looked around at his colleagues. It's been an incredible journey with all of you. Whatever happens next, we've achieved something significant here. As the day progressed, the team completed their final checks. When the lab work was done, they gathered outside in the cool evening air to relax after the intense preparation period. John turned to his colleagues, a small smile playing on his lips. You know, when I first came here, I wasn't sure what to expect. But working with you all, seeing what we can achieve together, it's more than I ever hoped for. Elliot laughed, clapping John on the shoulder. From lifting crates to groundbreaking medical trials? Huh? It's not a bad progression. Dr. Talon looked up at the stars beginning to twinkle in the dusk sky. It's a rare thing to find a group so dedicated and capable. I'm honored to be a part of this. The conversation turned lighter, with each sharing plans for the future. Dr. Finway spoke of teaching, hoping to inspire the next generation of researchers. Dr. Yarin expressed a desire to explore more of the galaxy, studying exotic plants and their medical uses. As they shared their dreams and aspirations, a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect deepened among them. John felt particularly moved, realizing how integral this team had become to his life. Whatever paths we choose after this, I hope we keep in touch, John said, his voice sincere. What we've started here doesn't have to end with this project. Elliot nodded vigorously. Absolutely. Let's not lose this connection. Maybe we'll collaborate again, on another world, another project. The group agreed, making a pact to reunite in the future, no matter where their individual journeys took them. As the evening wound down, they returned to the complex, each person reflective but filled with anticipation for the trial ahead. The next morning would bring challenges, but they faced them united, their bonds fortified by shared purpose and newfound friendships. In that moment, under the starlit sky of Thalaxian Prime, they understood that their collaboration had changed them all, not just professionally but personally. The trials ahead would test their creation, but the relationships they'd forged were their true success, proving that even across galaxies, common goals and mutual respect could lead to remarkable achievements. With one last look at the complex that had been their home for these intense months, they parted ways for the night, ready to face whatever the future held, together or apart.